If I had known what that phone call would bring, I swear, I never would have answered it. But when you're a mother, you don't ignore a call that comes at 2:47 in the morning. It was raining outside. The kind of soft, cold rain that sounds like it's scrubbing the world clean. Hey everyone, how are you doing today? I hope you're safe, healthy, and holding on to a little bit of peace. If you enjoy stories that touch the heart and keep you guessing till the end, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and stay with us. Alright then, let's begin today's story. My husband was asleep beside me when the phone lit up on the nightstand. Unknown number but the area code. It was from Maple Hollow, the little town where my son lived. He'd moved there 2 years ago after college. We talked less and less since then. I told myself it was just life, that he was busy. But somewhere in my chest, I could feel it. Distance isn't always about miles. When I picked up, a man's voice trembled on the other end. Mrs. Carson. Yes, this is Deputy Rowe from the Maple Hollow Sheriff's Office. We found your son's car. For a second, the world stopped breathing. Is he okay? I asked. The pause that followed told me everything I didn't want to hear. We're still looking for him, ma'am. I woke my husband. We packed without speaking. The drive was 6 hours, but it felt like 6 days. The rain followed us the whole way, thin, gray sheets against the windshield, like the sky was mourning before I even knew what I'd lost. When we finally reached the lake, his car was still there. Door open, engine off, keys in the ignition, and on the passenger seat his phone. Screen cracked, battery dead. But when I picked it up, it was warm. Not left in the sun, warm. Someone just held this warm. The deputy said maybe the heat from the car caused it, but the car had been there since yesterday morning. I tried to believe him. I really did. But when I pressed the power button, the screen flickered for half a second, just enough for me to see the wallpaper. It used to be a picture of him and our dog. Now, it was a photo of me, sleeping in my own bed. That's when I realized whoever had my son's phone had been inside my house. Didn't sleep that night. We stayed at a small roadside motel just outside Maple Hollow, the kind with flickering neon lights and coffee that tastes like rust. My husband tried to rest, but I couldn't close my eyes. Every time I did, I saw that photo, me, asleep in my bed. The sheriff came by in the morning. He said they'd search the woods, the lake, even the old mill, but there was no trace of my son. I asked him how the phone could have a new wallpaper if the battery was dead. He said maybe someone tampered with it, maybe. When we drove back to the lake later that afternoon, the wind had picked up. The water looked darker than before, almost black. I walked to the edge, staring at the ripples. Something about it felt wrong, too still, too heavy, like the lake was holding its breath. A local fisherman recognized me. You're the Carson woman, right? He asked softly. I nodded. He looked at the lake and said, you should tell the sheriff to check near the north dock. Strange things wash up there, things that don't belong to the water. We walked there together. The boards creaked under my feet. Halfway down, I saw something wedged between the planks, a small, muddy notebook. I pulled it free. The cover was torn, but when I wiped it clean, I saw my son's handwriting. Inside were pages of sketches, trees, the lake, and a house. Our house. The last page stopped me cold. It wasn't a drawing. It was a sentence written over and over again. She's not who you think she is. I felt my throat tighten. My husband leaned over my shoulder, reading the same words, his voice trembling. What does that even mean? Before I could answer, something splashed in the water behind us. Loud, heavy, like a body hitting the surface. The fisherman shouted and pointed toward the center of the lake. There. Did you see that? I didn't, but for just a second, I swear I heard his voice. My son's calling from the water. Mom, go home. And that was the moment I realized, whatever took my son wasn't finished yet. It wanted me next. When we got back home, everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. It's strange how silence changes after you lose someone. It's not peaceful anymore, it's heavy, like the walls themselves are listening. I went straight to my son's old room. I hadn't been in there much since he moved out. The air was thick with dust and the faint smell of his old cologne. On his desk was a stack of unopened letters, all addressed to me. My hands were shaking as I opened the first one. It wasn't long, just a few lines. Mom, if anything ever happens to me, Don't trust the man who says he's helping you. He's not who you think. The date on the envelope was from 2 months ago. I felt my stomach twist. The only man who'd been helping me was Deputy Rowe. I didn't tell my husband about the letters. I just said I was going to the station to check on the investigation. When I got there, Rowe was outside, leaning against his cruiser, smiling. "Mrs. Carson," he said, "any rest?" I forced a nod. "A little." He offered to drive me back to the lake, said they'd found something new. I didn't want to go, but a mother's heart can't ignore hope, even when it feels like a trap. The ride was quiet at first. Then, out of nowhere, he asked, "Did your son ever talk about hearing things?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" He kept his eyes on the road. "Voices. The kind that don't belong." Something in his tone made my skin crawl. "No," I said. "Why?" He smiled, but not kindly. "Just curious." When we reached the lake, there was no one else there. No other cars. No tape. No search team. Just us. He got out first. I stayed in the car, watching him walk to the dock. Then he turned and called, "You coming?" That's when I saw it, the reflection in the rearview mirror. A face in the back seat, pale, wet, eyes wide open. It was my son. I turned around instantly, and the seat was empty. By the time I looked back at the mirror again, Deputy Rowe was standing right outside my window, smiling. Froze. His face was right outside the glass, that same calm, polite smile, but there was something off about it. Too still, too patient. I forced the window down just an inch. "What did you find?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He tilted his head. "You'll want to see for yourself. It's by the dock." Every instinct in me screamed, "Don't get out of the car." But I did, because that's what mothers do. We chase even the faintest chance of finding our children. The boards creaked under my feet again, like they remembered me from last time. The wind was colder now, carrying that smell, metal, water, and something sour beneath it. Rowe stood near the edge, pointing down into the lake. "There," he said. "Do you see it?" I leaned forward. The surface shimmered with small ripples. Beneath them, something pale moved slowly, like a hand. My breath caught. "Oh my God." Rowe grabbed my arm, hard. "Careful," he said, smiling again. "You don't want to fall in." I pulled away from him. "Let go of me." He didn't move for a second. Then he stepped back, his smile fading. "Your son shouldn't have gone digging into things that weren't his business." My heart stopped. "What did you say?" He shrugged. "There are things in this town you don't understand, Mrs. Carson. Best you stay quiet, for your own good." I turned and ran, back to the car, back to the road. I didn't stop until I was halfway home, hands trembling on the steering wheel. When I got inside, I locked every door. My husband wasn't there. He'd gone to stay with his sister for the night, still too shaken to come back to the lake. I stood in the kitchen, breathing hard, when I heard it. Tap, 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 coming from the hallway. I followed the sound to my son's old room. The window was open, the one I know I'd locked, and on his desk, right where the letters had been, was something new. A single photograph. Me, standing by the lake, taken from behind. On the back, written in the same handwriting as my son's notebook, were 3 words: "He's still alive." I stared at the photograph for a long time. The handwriting on the back, it was definitely his, my son's, but the message didn't make sense. He's still alive. If that was true, who had been sending these clues? And how were they getting into my locked house? That night, I drove back into town. I didn't tell my husband. I didn't even tell the sheriff's office. I just needed to see the truth for myself. Maple Hollow was quieter than usual. Too quiet. The streets were empty. The diner lights off, even though it was barely 8 o'clock. When I stopped for gas, the clerk, a young woman with tired eyes, recognized me. "You're Mrs. Carson," she said softly. "You should be careful out here." I frowned. "Why?" She looked around, lowered her voice. "People disappear here sometimes. They just stop being talked about, like they never existed." My stomach twisted. "Did you know my son?" She hesitated, then nodded. "He came in a few times, asked a lot of questions. About the old lake house." "The lake house?" I asked. She nodded again. "North side. Belonged to a family named Rowe." Rowe, the deputy's family. I thanked her, left the gas station, and drove toward the north side of the lake. The road was barely a road anymore, cracked, swallowed by weeds. The air grew colder with every turn. When I finally saw it, I almost didn't recognize it as a house. It was old, sagging under its own weight, with boards covering most of the windows. But one light was still on, a single lamp in the upstairs room. I parked a few feet away and stepped out. Every instinct told me to leave, but mothers don't stop when it comes to their children. I walked up the porch steps. They groaned under my weight. The front door wasn't locked. Inside, it smelled of damp wood and dust. I moved slowly, running my fingers along the walls. Family photos hung crooked, and in one of them, I saw a young man who looked just like my son. But it wasn't him. It was someone else, standing next to a younger Deputy Rowe. My hands shook as I pulled the photo from the frame. On the back was a date, October 17th, 1997, and a name I didn't recognize. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Upstairs. Someone was in the house. I froze at the bottom of the staircase, listening. The boards above me creaked, slow and deliberate, like someone was pacing. I took a deep breath, held it, and whispered, "Michael?" No answer. Only another step, this time closer to the stairs. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might echo through the house. I didn't have a weapon, not even my phone. I'd left it in the car when I saw the light. Still, I couldn't walk away. I climbed the stairs one careful step at a time. The air grew colder with each rise, carrying that faint, earthy smell that comes from water left too long in the dark. At the top was a narrow hallway. The light I'd seen from outside spilled through a half-open door at the end. I pushed it gently and stepped inside. It was a bedroom. The wallpaper was peeling, the bed stripped bare. On the desk sat an old lamp, a rusted flashlight, and a box. Inside the box were photos, dozens of them. Pictures of people, families, some old, some new. And there, mixed in between, was one of my son, standing by the lake, talking to a man whose face had been cut out of the photo. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Then I noticed a notebook next to the box. It wasn't my son's. The handwriting was different, sharper. The first line read, "Keep them quiet. They ask too many questions." The entries went back years. Every few pages, a new name appeared and then a date crossed out beside it. The last name written was Michael Carson. I backed away, heart racing. My foot hit something, a loose floorboard. When I looked down, I saw it had been pried open before. Inside was a small plastic bag. Inside the bag, my son's missing necklace. Before I could think, I heard a voice behind me. "Mrs. Carson." I spun around. It wasn't Deputy Rowe. It was the gas station clerk. Her face was pale, eyes wide. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "He'll be back any minute." "Who?" I asked. She looked toward the window, fear in every line of her face. "Rowe doesn't work alone." The girl's whisper cut through the dark. "Rowe doesn't work alone." My mouth went dry. "Then who does?" She hesitated. "His brother, the sheriff." I felt the air leave my lungs. Every time I'd gone to the station, every polite word, every promise that they were doing all they could, all of it had been a lie. The girl tugged my hand. "We have to go. Now." We hurried down the stairs, every step creaking louder than it should. When we reached the front door, I saw headlights sweeping across the trees outside. Rowe's truck. The girl pulled me toward the back, through a narrow hallway that led to a cellar door. The hinges groaned as we slipped inside and closed it behind us. The smell of damp earth filled my nose. "Why are they doing this?" I whispered. She swallowed hard. "People who dig too deep around here disappear. Your son came to me a few weeks ago. He said he'd found proof, something buried under the lake. The Rose couldn't let that get out." I tried to steady my voice. "What kind of proof?" She pulled a small flash drive from her jacket pocket. "He told me to keep this safe in case something happened to him." I reached for it, my hands trembling. "What's on it?" "I haven't looked," she said, "but whatever it is, it scared them." Above us, the floorboards creaked. "Boots." Rowe's voice called softly. "You can't hide from the truth forever, Mrs. Carson." The girl's eyes met mine, terrified. We waited, barely breathing, as his footsteps passed overhead. Then slowly, the truck engine started and faded into the distance. We stayed hidden until the house was silent again. When we finally climbed out, dawn was breaking, the first light cutting across the lake like a thin line of hope. I looked at the water and whispered, "Hold on, Michael. I'm not giving up." I didn't know yet what was on that flash drive, but somehow, I knew it was going to change everything. We drove straight from the lake house to the next town over, the girl and me. Neither of us spoke for miles. She clutched that flash drive like it was the only solid thing left in the world. At a small diner just off the highway, we found an old laptop someone had left plugged into a charging station. My hands were shaking as I slid the flash drive in. The screen flickered to life. There were folders, dates, names, and one labeled footage. When I opened it, a video started playing. It was grainy, shot from a phone camera. My son's voice came through first. "If you're seeing this, Mom, it means they found me. But please, don't be scared, the truth has to come out." He turned the camera toward the lake behind him. "They've been dumping chemical waste in the water for years. People got sick. Some died." When I found the reports, Ro and his brother tried to shut me up. My breath caught. The screen shook as if he'd heard something behind him. He whispered, "They're here." Then the video cut off. I sat there, frozen. The girl reached over and pressed play on another file. Documents, photos, and reports with the sheriff's signature on every page. Proof. We drove to the nearest FBI field office that morning. I handed over everything. They listened, took notes, and promised to start an investigation. It took months, but eventually, the truth surfaced. Just like the lake could no longer hide what had been buried beneath it, the Rowe brothers were arrested. The dumping was exposed. Families who'd lost loved ones finally had answers. They never found my son, not really, but the evidence he'd left behind saved people. Maybe that's what he wanted all along. Now sometimes, I still go back to the lake. I sit by the edge and watch the water move under the morning sun. It doesn't look dark anymore. I talk to him, even though I know no one's listening. I tell him I'm proud, that his mother kept her promise. And when the wind shifts across the water, for just a second, I swear I hear him whisper back, "You did good, Mom." And that is the truth I've had to live with. Some answers come with time, and some people remain only as memories we hold on to. But one thing I know for sure, a mother never stops searching, and she never stops loving. Not in this life, and not in the next. If this story touched your heart, please make sure to like the video and subscribe for more emotional mystery stories just like this one. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, take care of yourselves and stay safe.